It is one of the most widespread and yet unspoken fears of our time. The fear that we will marry the wrong person. This is a fear that cuts to the very core of our hopes for a happy life. We spend years dreaming of finding the one. The thought that we could end up making a catastrophic error is almost too much to bear. It haunts even those who are happily coupled, perhaps standing at the altar. The fear is about choosing someone who will become the wrong person later. It is a deeply human anxiety, rooted in our desire for connection and our terror of loneliness. Our culture feeds us romantic comedies, where finding the right person is presented as a simple matter of destiny. We are sold a fantasy of perfect compatibility, and so we are left in a difficult position. This essay is an attempt to untangle this knot. It's a look at why the fear of marrying the wrong person is a feature of modern relationships. A wedding day is an occasion of supreme optimism. Everyone is dressed in their finest clothes. The couple is radiant, glowing with love. They exchange vows, promising to love each other for all of eternity. This optimism is beautiful and necessary to make such a monumental commitment. But it is also a kind of blindness. We are not contemplating the mundane realities of sharing a life. It is a carefully curated performance of perfect love. We present our partner with an idealized self. The wedding day ends. What remains are two ordinary, flawed human beings who now have to figure out how to build a life together. The gap between the optimism of the wedding day and the reality of married life is where the trouble begins. This essay is a deep and hopeful investigation into what love really is. But to get there, we must be willing to have a different kind of conversation about marriage. We need to be honest about our own strangeness, our own difficulties, and our own psychological baggage. Everyone marries the wrong person, but it is actually a liberating idea. Perhaps love is not about finding someone who is already perfect, but about having the generosity to love an imperfect person. This then is the promise of the conversation we are about to have. The goal is to equip you with a new kind of wisdom, a wisdom that can help you navigate the challenges of love with more realism. Long before first dates or understanding love, the blueprints for our relationships are being drawn, sketched out by our childhood homes. The way our parents showed affection becomes our first education in love. This early environment becomes our normal. These lessons are etched into our nervous systems, shaping our gut feelings. It is a pull towards what feels familiar. We rarely examine these blueprints, carrying them into adulthood. Understanding this influence is the first step toward drawing a new blueprint for ourselves. It's ironic that we're drawn to people who make us suffer in familiar ways. New happiness can feel frightening. Our psyche prefers the devil it knows. Someone with a critical parent might seek aloof partners. The familiar struggle to earn love feels right on a deeper level. It's a misguided attempt to heal old wounds, hoping for a different ending. The tragedy is that this strategy reinforces the original pain. Our first experience of love comes from our parents, forming the bedrock of our emotional world. This early love leaves a permanent imprint, shaping the love we seek for life. If our parents loved us for who we were, we internalize a sense of being lovable. But if love felt conditional, we learn it must be earned. We unconsciously associate love with how our parents showed it and can fail to recognize it in different forms. Childhood isn't just about what happened, it's also about what didn't. Unmet emotional needs follow us, creating a deep hunger we expect partners to satisfy. We're asking them to be the parent we never had, looking for them to fill voids from our past. This dynamic is dangerous because our partners are not our parents. They have their own baggage. It's unfair to task them with healing childhood wounds. We react with betrayal when they fail to meet unspoken demands, re-experiencing childhood pain. Until we reparent ourselves, we'll set relationships up for failure. At the heart of our romantic searching, there is often a hidden, hopeful mission, the quest for a corrective experience. You know, we are not just looking for someone to love, we are looking for someone who can help us fix the past. We want a relationship that will be the opposite of the painful dynamics we grew up with. If our childhood home was loud, chaotic, and full of arguments, we might dream of a partner who is the embodiment of peace and tranquility. We fantasize about a life of quiet evenings, gentle conversations, and a home that feels like a sanctuary from the storms we once knew. If we felt ignored or invisible as a child, we might seek a partner who worships the ground we walk on, someone who pays rapt attention to our every word and deed. The intensity of their focus feels like the perfect antidote to the neglect we once suffered. If our family was emotionally repressed and never spoke about feelings, we might be powerfully drawn to someone who is incredibly expressive, dramatic, and emotionally open. Their willingness to cry, to shout, to declare their love with grand gestures feels like a breath of fresh air, a liberation from the suffocating silence of our youth. This search for a corrective experience is entirely understandable. It is born of a healthy desire to move towards something better, to avoid repeating the mistakes and pains of the past. However, this strategy is also fraught with peril. When we choose a partner primarily because they are the opposite of a negative trait from our past, we are still letting that past dictate our present choices. We are reacting rather than choosing freely. We are so focused on avoiding one specific quality, the chaos, the neglect, the silence, that we may fail to see the whole person standing in front of us. The peaceful partner we choose to correct our chaotic childhood might turn out to be passive-aggressive or emotionally unavailable in other ways. The adoring partner who corrects our feelings of invisibility might eventually become possessive and controlling. The emotionally expressive partner might lack the stability and self-control needed to navigate life's challenges. By focusing so intently on finding the cure for a single childhood wound, we often overcompensate and end up with a different but equally challenging set of problems. We have escaped one kind of familiar pain only to stumble into a new unfamiliar one, leading once again to the bewildered feeling that we have chosen the wrong person. From a young age, we're fed a powerful story about love. It's everywhere, from fairy tales to movies. We call it the grand romantic narrative. This narrative tells us that love is a magical force, a destiny written in the stars. It suggests that for everyone, there is one special other out there, a soulmate who will complete us. Finding them is the ultimate goal. It is a beautiful fantasy, deeply embedded in our culture. The problem is that it bears almost no resemblance to reality. Real love is not a magical event, it is a daily practice. It is about learning to live with an imperfect person. It requires immense effort and communication. We go into relationships with a faulty map. We expect a movie but get a documentary. The narrative has not prepared us for reality. At the heart of our romantic confusion lies a damaging idea. The myth of the perfect soulmate. This is the belief that there is one person perfectly designed for us, with absolute and effortless compatibility. This myth is a recipe for profound loneliness. It sends us on an impossible quest, comparing every potential partner against an imaginary ideal of perfection. The truth is, no one will ever meet all our criteria. No one is a perfect match. Every single person is a complex bundle of virtues and flaws. To expect perfection in another person is to deny their humanity. The myth of the soulmate traps us in a cycle of disappointment. Our romantic culture, places a huge emphasis on a feeling we call chemistry. This is that intense, immediate, and often overwhelming sense of connection we can feel with a new person. It's a heady cocktail of physical attraction, excitement, and a feeling of being deeply understood. When we feel this chemistry, it's often taken as an undeniable sign that, well, we've met someone special. It feels like fate, like a powerful force pulling us toward this person. We are told to trust this feeling, to follow it wherever it may lead. A lack of instant chemistry, on the other hand, is often seen as a deal breaker, a clear signal that there's no future in a potential pairing. But relying on chemistry as our main guide in choosing a partner is honestly a dangerously flawed strategy. What we call chemistry is often not a sign of healthy compatibility at all. More often than not, it's a sign of familiarity. The intense pull we feel towards someone is frequently a signal that they resonate with a deep, unresolved pattern from our past. That person who gives us butterflies and makes our heart race might actually be activating an old wound. They might remind us on an unconscious level of a parent who was exciting but unpredictable, or whose love we had to work hard to win. The feeling of chemistry can be a pull towards a familiar kind of chaos or a familiar type of pain. We mistake the anxiety of the dynamic for the excitement of love. We feel alive and engaged because, well, we are on familiar ground, playing out a script we learned long ago. The person who feels comfortable, safe, and kind might not generate the same level of intense chemistry precisely because they are not triggering our old patterns. They feel boring or like a friend because they are offering a healthy, stable connection that our nervous system, trained on drama, doesn't know how to recognize as romantic love. This leads us to make terrible choices. We chase the thrilling, high-chemistry connections that are often doomed to repeat our most painful relational patterns. We end up with partners who make us feel intensely but who are ultimately not good for us. Meanwhile, we overlook the kind, reliable, and genuinely compatible people who could offer us real and lasting happiness, dismissing them because the initial spark was not explosive enough. We've been taught to trust a feeling that is a notoriously unreliable narrator of our own best interests, a compass that often points us back toward the very shipwrecks we are trying to escape. In the popular imagination, the story of love has a very clear ending, the wedding day. Our stories and films build towards this grand finale, leaving the impression that the journey is over. They've reached the destination. This narrative has a damaging effect on our expectations of marriage. We pour energy into planning the perfect wedding day, treating it as the culmination of our romantic lives. We spend less time preparing for the day-to-day reality of being married. Because we see the wedding as the goal, we can fail to properly vet our partners for the long journey ahead. This is why the period after the wedding can be a time of shock and disillusionment. Now, the real work begins. Beyond our personal histories and romantic ideals, there's another powerful force shaping our decisions about marriage: society. Society operates with an invisible but deeply felt timeline for life's major milestones. You're expected to finish your education by a certain age, establish a career, and get married and start a family within a specific, socially approved window. This timeline isn't written down in any official rulebook, but it's communicated to us constantly through family conversations, media portrayals, and the life choices of our peers. It creates a subtle but persistent pressure to keep up, to hit our marks on schedule. This societal timeline can feel like a relentless clock ticking in the background of our lives. As we move through our late 20s and into our 30s, the ticking can grow louder and more insistent. Friends start getting engaged, wedding invitations fill our mailboxes, and social media feeds become a parade of happy couples and baby announcements. Each event can feel like another reminder that we're falling behind. The question, so are you seeing anyone special, starts to carry a new weight, a hint of concern or judgment. We begin to feel that our single status is not just a personal circumstance, but a public problem that needs to be solved. This pressure can lead us to make decisions out of anxiety rather than genuine desire. The fear of not meeting the timeline can become more powerful than the desire to find a truly compatible partner. We might start to lower our standards, to view potential partners not through the lens of deep connection, but through the lens of their immediate availability and willingness to commit. The primary goal shifts from finding the right person to simply finding a person before it feels too late. The choice of a life partner becomes less about love and more about meeting a deadline set by others. The tragedy of the timeline is that it's entirely arbitrary. There's no universal law stating that happiness can only be found by marrying at age 30. People find love and build wonderful lives at all ages and stages. Yet the tyranny of this imagined schedule is so powerful that it can push us into unions that are not right for us. We rush into a marriage to silence the ticking clock, only to find ourselves in a quiet, lonely partnership, realizing too late that the fear of being off schedule has led us to a destination we never truly wanted to reach. We've satisfied society, but we've betrayed ourselves. You know, human beings are fundamentally social creatures. We have this deep, primal need to belong, to be part of a tribe. In modern society, one of the most significant ways we signal our belonging as adults is through partnership. Being part of a couple is seen as the default, the normal state of being. And as our friends and peers pair off one by one, a powerful and unsettling feeling can begin to emerge, the fear of being left behind. This is more than just a fear of being single. It is a fear of being excluded, of being the last one standing when the music stops. It is the specter of social isolation. Honestly, this fear can manifest in subtle but profound ways. Social gatherings can start to feel like a minefield. Dinners and parties become dominated by couples, and you find yourself the odd one out, the single person in a sea of twos. Conversations naturally drift to topics like mortgages, renovations, and raising children, worlds that feel increasingly distant from your own. You may start to receive fewer invitations, not out of malice, but because your coupled friends assume you would not enjoy their boring domestic lives. A gap begins to form, and the loneliness of being on the other side of that divide can be, well, pretty acute. This social pressure is a powerful motivator. It can make the idea of almost any partnership seem preferable to the desolation of being alone. We might start to look at a partner who is good enough with new eyes. Their flaws, which once seemed like deal breakers, now appear manageable. Their lack of emotional depth or shared interests seems like a small price to pay for the simple comfort of having a plus one, of being able to say we instead of I. The desire to rejoin the tribe, to be part of the dominant social unit, can become overwhelming. In this state of mind, we're not really choosing a partner. We are seeking a ticket back into the social fold. We might convince ourselves that we are in love, but the primary emotion driving the decision is often fear. We marry not because we have found a soul to connect with, but because we cannot bear the thought of another Saturday night alone, another wedding attended solo. This decision, born of a fear of social exclusion, is a fragile foundation for a lifelong commitment. The relief of no longer being left behind is temporary, often replaced by the much deeper, more permanent loneliness of being with the wrong person. Settling is a concept our culture treats with, well, a lot of disdain. It's seen as an act of cowardice, a betrayal of our romantic dreams. We are told never to settle, to hold out for the passionate, all-encompassing love we deserve. But this black and white view fails to acknowledge the immense quiet pressure that leads so many good, intelligent people to do just that. Settling is rarely a dramatic, conscious decision. It's more like a slow, subtle process of erosion, a quiet compromise made when the exhaustion of searching outweighs the hope of finding something more. The process often begins with a shift in our internal narrative. The hopeful romanticism of our early 20s gives way to a more pragmatic and perhaps more cynical outlook. The endless string of disappointing dates, the short-term relationships that go nowhere, the feeling of being constantly evaluated and found wanting, it all takes a toll. We start to wonder if our expectations are too high. We begin to question whether the kind of love we see in movies even exists. Perhaps we tell ourselves real-world love is just about finding someone tolerable who shares some of your life goals. This is the first step towards settling. This new, more realistic mindset makes us re-evaluate people we might have previously dismissed. That kind but boring person from work. Maybe boring is actually stable. That person who doesn't quite get your sense of humor. Perhaps a shared sense of humor is overrated compared to their desire for a family. We start to prioritize a checklist of practical attributes over the intangible feeling of a deep connection. We focus on whether they are a good person, whether they have a steady job, whether they would be a reliable parent. We start to think of marriage less as a romantic union and more as a sensible merger. The final step in the quiet compromise of settling is to convince ourselves that this pragmatic choice is, in fact, what we wanted all along. We tell ourselves and our friends that we have matured, that we have outgrown our childish fantasies of romance. We celebrate the stability and predictability of the relationship, framing it as a sign of wisdom. But deep down, a part of us knows we have given up on something essential. We have traded the possibility of profound connection for the certainty of not being alone. We have settled not for a person, but for a less lonely, less vibrant future than the one we once dreamed of. One of the most dangerous traps on the path to marriage is the profound human terror of loneliness. It's a feeling so uncomfortable, so fundamentally unsettling, that we will do almost anything to escape it. This fear can become a fog that clouds our judgment, making it difficult to distinguish between genuine affection for a person and the simple, desperate relief of their presence. We can become so grateful to have someone, anyone, to fill the empty space beside us that we mistake this gratitude for love itself. The alleviation of our own loneliness becomes the primary benefit of the relationship. This confusion is easy to understand. When someone comes along and breaks a long spell of solitude, the feeling is intoxicating. Suddenly, there is someone to call at the end of the day, someone to have dinner with, someone to wake up next to on a Sunday morning. The quiet ache of being alone is replaced by the warmth of companionship. This sudden contrast is so powerful that it can feel like falling in love. We attribute all these wonderful feelings of relief and comfort to the specific qualities of our new partner rather than recognizing them for what they are. The natural human response to escaping isolation. The problem is that a relationship built on the foundation of fear is inherently unstable. We are not loving the other person for who they truly are. We are loving them for the function they perform in our lives. They are our shield against the void. This leads us to overlook significant flaws and incompatibilities. We might ignore their selfishness, their lack of ambition, or their different values because the thought of returning to loneliness is simply too terrifying to contemplate. We cling to the relationship not because it is good, but because the alternative seems unbearable. Over time, the initial relief fades, but the fundamental incompatibilities remain. We may have escaped the loneliness of being single, but we can find ourselves in a far more painful state. The loneliness of being in a partnership where we feel unseen and misunderstood. This is the cruel irony of choosing a partner out of a fear of being alone. We end up feeling profoundly isolated, not in an empty apartment, but right next to the person we have pledged to spend our life with. We have mistaken the cure for one kind of loneliness for the presence of true love. We often settle for good enough relationships, safe, stable, but lacking true connection. On paper, everything seems fine. No drama, no red flags, just comfort. Yet this comfort can become a quiet trap, numbing us to the possibility of deeper fulfillment. We mistake the absence of problems for the presence of real love. Over time, this safety can leave us feeling hollow, as if we've chosen security over truly living. The real risk isn't in leaving, but in never daring to seek a love that makes us feel truly alive. We crave a partner who just gets us, believing perfect understanding is the mark of true love. Early on, this illusion feels magical, but it rarely lasts. Real understanding isn't telepathy. It's built through effort, patience, and communication. Disappointment comes when we expect mind reading instead of honest conversation. True connection is forged by explaining ourselves and listening deeply, not by finding someone who already knows. Love grows not from effortless communion, but from the ongoing work of understanding each other. Perfectionism in love is a trap. We treat partners like products, searching for flaws. This endless quest for the perfect person keeps us single or dissatisfied. People are beautifully imperfect. Their strengths and weaknesses are intertwined. Demanding flawlessness creates anxiety and blocks intimacy. A good relationship isn't about eliminating problems, but facing them together as allies. Embracing imperfection is the only way to find real partnership. Some ignore red flags, clinging to hope and fearing loneliness. We rationalize bad behavior, defending our choices and dreams. This willful blindness is an active process. We paint red flags white to protect our fantasy. Reality eventually breaks through, often when we're already deeply entangled. The truth is, we didn't miss the signs. We chose not to see them. Facing reality early is the only way to avoid deeper regret. Accepting that we and our partners are imperfect is liberating, not bleak. Real love begins when we stop searching for fantasy and start building something real. It's about accommodating flaws with generosity, patience, and honest communication. Friction isn't failure, it's an opportunity to grow and deepen our bond. The wrong person is often the perfect collaborator in learning how to love. This is not settling, it's the true prize of partnership. Mature love is about what we give, not just what we get. It's seeing and accepting our partner's humanity, flaws, and all. Compassion, patience, and forgiveness are the real skills of love. We must distinguish between normal imperfection and true harm. Two imperfect people, committed to kindness and growth, create lasting love. When we accept that everyone is the wrong person in some way, we finally unlock the possibility of a love that's more than good enough.